Welcome to the Great Beer State podcast from the Michigan Brewers Guild. The Great Beer State is a weekly show sharing conversations and stories from the passionate people who contribute to our vibrant Michigan beer community. It is made up of a mix between full-length archived interviews from the Guild's first documentary book project, A Rising Tide, Stories from the Michigan Brewers Guild, and conversations recorded in the here and now. Each episode is kicked off with a conversational update from host Scott Graham, Executive Director of the Guild, and the beer-evangelist Fred Biltman, author of A Rising Tide. Here's Scott and Fred. Welcome to Michigan's Great Beer State podcast. It's episode 10. My name's Fred. I'm here with my good friend Scott Graham of the Michigan Brewers Guild, and we've got a really special episode for you. So we'll jump right into it. We're glad to be back after a little bit of a summer break there. But summer is well underway. And Scott, we got a couple of brief updates before we introduce our exciting panel today. What's going on in the world of Brewers Guild and beer fests?
Well, I guess we're back to having some excitement and enthusiasm. So we are, we're full steam ahead and planning the UP Fall Beer Festival in Marquette for September 11th. Everything looks really good there. Of course, we didn't have or are not having our summer beer festival in July for the second year, and we actually had started planning and went into the process, including getting tickets on sale for two alternative festivals in August. I guess they're kind of to sort of replace not having the July festival, but we thought it'd be fun to go work with the two ballparks, both in Comstock Park and Traverse City. So the LMCU ballpark in Comstock Park near Grand Rapids is, of course, where we have the Winter Festival. And Turtle Creek Stadium in Traverse City is where we've been trying to have a spring beer festival for 2 years and haven't had it. And we thought these would be great alternative events. Our partners were excited. And, we got a few weeks into the ticket sales and just decided that that there was great risk. We were worried about not selling enough tickets and made the admittedly frustrating decision to just not go forward with those events. So we just recently refunded tickets and announced that we weren't having them, which I think is probably the fiscally responsible, even though it might be conservative approach. But it's been hard on us at the Brewers Guild these past 18 months, just like so many of our members. And we really couldn't stomach a loss. So we did pull the plug on those. The good news is our regularly scheduled events are looking great. People are excited to be going to the UP Festival, and we're starting planning in earnest on the Detroit Fall Beer Festival. So plan to be in Detroit at the Eastern Market on October 23rd as well. And I'm really confident that our normal schedule of events will go well this fall and into next year. I just think August is too busy, too much going on. I know it is a busy time for me, and that was a lot of the feedback that we got. So we're moving forward and excited about getting back to our regular schedule of events.
Yeah, it's exciting to see people out and about again, see breweries open and restaurants and bars and brew pubs all thriving, at least in terms of there seems to be a robust call for them. Thriving may be generous because I think it's still pretty challenging out there in terms of a lot of the things going on, but it is good to see people out there drinking beer together, and it's understandable and challenging to pull off any new festival, especially then you add this climate and a short time span, and it makes sense. But I'm really looking forward to the UP Fall Beer Festival in Detroit. You mentioned October 23rd. The date for the UP Fall Beer Fest in Marquette is September 11th, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. Yep.
So, and are tickets on sale for that yet?
Tickets are on sale for Marquette. I think we're on track to probably sell that event out again. So encourage people to go online to mibeer.com and get tickets. And we have a planned on sale date for the Detroit Festival of August 5th. Of course, our enthusiast members get a pre-sale. They get a crack at tickets a couple days before they go on sale to the general public. In addition to getting the hour sort of VIP treatment at festivals, where they get in an hour before the gates open to general admission. So that's one of the great benefits of being an enthusiast member. If anybody's interested in that, I'd refer them to our website also, mibeer.com.
All right. Well, that's a great update. Festivals are on the docket, and we're looking ahead to some great ones. With that, I think we can jump into the Brewers Dozen, our tradition of giving some shout outs to brewery members around and across the state. You want to share a little bit about this region and get us started?
Yeah, we've been going by region for quite a few episodes. And of course, we like to mention as many breweries as possible. So we're kind of methodically working through the whole list of member breweries. And this regional focus is in the Grand Rapids area, but it's to the west of Grand Rapids and to the southwest of Grand Rapids. With the exception of one maybe getting a little maybe west northwest, but mostly west and southwest.
All right. A good thing the rules are flexible. Their guidelines, suggestions. Well, we can start out.
Well, let's start out with D Hops Brewing Company and Cafe, which is in Walker.
Excellent. And then over in Allendale, we have Trail Point Brewing Company.
Yeah, and then the one that I mentioned that's a little tiny bit north is Coopersville Brewing Company in Coopersville, and this is one of our newest brewery members in Coopersville. So a lot of people probably haven't checked that out yet.
There you go. And then one who's been around for a little bit is Pike 51 Brewing Company in Hudsonville.
And also in Hudsonville, there's White Flame Brewing Company.
And in nearby Granville, we've got our friends at Osgood Brewing.
And if we travel to Wyoming, there you can find Two Guys Brewing.
And also in Wyoming, you've got Three Gatos Brewery.
And Byron Center is the home of Alebird Tap House and Brewery. I think that's the only brew pub license on the list today.
And then I'll let you take care of the asterisk on this one, but we've got Arvon Brewing Company.
Yeah, Arvon Brewing Company is actually not in this little region. They are on Division in Grand Rapids. But when we mentioned breweries in that area, either I didn't catch it or I'm not exactly sure the date they moved, but their original location was in this area, and they were just kind of in a little warehouse space, and they did beer pickup is really all they did on I don't know if they did it weekly or every other week, and they moved to another location where they have a tasting room. So we wanted to make sure not to leave out Arvon Brewing Company.
All right. That's the Brewers Dozen for episode 10. Check them out. You can go visit them in person now and hoist a couple of fresh Michigan beers at any of our member breweries. So that brings us to kicking off this episode. So I think this introduction will be a lot shorter. We have introductions coming up as soon as we hand it over. But recently we've been having a conversation about really, looking at the culture of our brewing community across Michigan and within the guild and what the guild's role is within that community. But I think there's been a lot of we've evolved quite a bit as an industry. Our communities have evolved to be talking about bigger issues and talking about being welcoming and equitable and diverse. And so we brought a panel together of members of the Michigan Brewers Guild, co-chairs of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee within the Michigan Brewers Guild, yourself, and Isaac Hartman, current president of the Guild. So we had a great conversation from some really interesting and compelling voices that are helping move that along, and look forward to sharing with you. Anything you'd like to add there, Scott, by way of introducing the panel?
Yeah, I'd like to make mention that, while there's been a lot of conversation for some time now within the industry and also here locally at the Michigan Brewers Guild at our board meetings about um, encouraging diversity within our whole community and trying to find creative and meaningful ways to do that. One of the things that made news recently was, kind of I guess you could call it a Me Too episode of, some um, negative stories in the industry. A gal posted about her experience, and then literally hundreds of other people shared experiences, and it brought this issue, up full into the spotlight. And that was part of the reason that we discussed having this panel. But like I said, this is an issue that we've been talking about and has been important to us for quite some time. I don't pretend to think that we've done all the work that we need to do. I think we're at a starting point on a long and continuous journey, but we certainly want to see our community include anybody that's interested, and the bigger the better. The more people included, the better.
Absolutely. So, without further ado, I think we can hand it off. We've got Jasmine Hairston from Eastern Market Beer, Kim Collins from Guardian Brewing, Isaac Hartman from New Holland Brewing, and you and me in a robust conversation about the culture of the Michigan brewing community. Cheers.
Take it away, and cheers.
We have a special edition episode today. We're doing a panel discussion with members of the board and the Michigan Brewers Guild Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And our panel is on reflections on the culture of Michigan's brewing community. And we've had a lot of separate conversations. And over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of daylight brought to marginalized people and communities within our industry, within our culture. And I think it's been really interesting time, and there have been a lot of shifts in terms of what I'd call, paying attention to having more intentional culture around our industry, our profession, our companies, our organizations. And so we thought we'd spend some time on this important conversation that's ongoing with a number of interesting voices and people who help shape that in the Michigan Brewers Guild community. So welcome, everybody. We've got Scott Graham, Executive Director of the Michigan Brewers Guild. We've got Kim from Guardian Brewing Company. We have Jasmine from Eastern Market Brewing Company, and Isaac from New Holland Brewing Company. I thought I'd start by allowing all of you to just introduce yourselves, even though I said who is here, but I'd love to hear from you real briefly, kind of where you're from and maybe how long you've been on the scene, either nationally or in Michigan. Kim, you want to kick us off?
So hi, everyone. I'm Kim Collins. I'm the owner and head brewer for Guardian Brewing Company. We're located in Saugatuck, Michigan, and I have been in Michigan since 2017. Guardian's been open since 2018, and I've been in the beer industry since 2012 over in Colorado before this. And I'm not from either of those states. I'm actually from the Chicago area.
All right. Isaac, how about you?
Thanks, Fred. Isaac Hartman with New Holland Brewing. I've been in the beer business this will be my 20th year, so quite some time. And I'm from Rockford, Michigan, which is a suburb of Grand Rapids. And lived here my whole life, so pretty much. So glad to be part of the discussion today.
Thank you. And what's your role with the Michigan Brewers Guild currently?
I currently am the current board president.
Great. And Kim, how about you? I forgot to ask you that.
Yeah, I forgot to say too. So I'm on the board as well, and I co-chair the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee with Jasmine.
All right. Jasmine, you're up.
Hey, I'm Jasmine. I work at Eastern Market Brewing Company. I do a lot of our culture and outreach with the team. I am the rookie on the call here, so please spare me. I've been with Eastern Market since 2018, and that's as long as I've been in the beer industry. Like I said, I co-chair that MBG DE&I committee, and I'm also on the BA's DE&I committee for mentorship and professional development. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Terrific. Welcome. Really glad to have you here. And Scott, how about yourself?
Thanks, Fred. I am a career-long beer person. I first went to work in a brewery in Michigan in 1989. Yes, I guess I'm at least middle-aged and probably more than that. But I've worked, in breweries and, running beer production at a lot of different levels, as well as working in sales and marketing. And I've been involved with the Brewers Guild since its inception. I'm a past member of the board of directors, and I've been the executive director of the Michigan Brewers Guild for 15 years. So I guess I'm a trade association manager, but I still fancy myself a bit of a brewer. And you might as well introduce yourself, Fred.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So my name's Fred. And besides producing and hosting this podcast with Scott over the last couple of years, I'm past president of the Michigan Brewers Guild, and I had 20 plus years in the Michigan brewing scene, 10 of which were at Bell's in Kalamazoo, and 12 or 13 of which were at New Holland with Isaac in Holland, Michigan. So been around for a little bit and watched our community grow. And we are usually on a very championing, positive, look at what's great about what we have here sort of perspective. And really largely, I still feel this can be through that lens. But I also think that one of the interesting parts about these conversations is it does require some self-reflections about the things you wished were different, and the things that you hope to change. And sometimes that looking back can include some stuff that's a little less positive, things that we can grow from. So I really appreciate all of you being here for that, and look forward to the conversation. So that sort of sets me up a little bit to ask the first question, which is, with these various things, it's usually more than one time, more than one period. And I just want to broaden the view a little bit and say, over the last few years, how do you feel Michigan Brewers Guild has evolved in terms of awareness and or development and the implementation of ideas and practices towards overall inclusion in the community? Meaning, at what points in our history as a guild have we looked at doing something to be more inclusive and more open as an industry or an organization? And Scott, as the most history of the guild, I don't know if you want to field this one first and then open it up, or if anybody else has thoughts.
I'll get started if you don't mind. To me, it's felt like the community has always really wanted to be inclusive of everybody in the brewing community, which a number of years ago was pretty small. Everybody got together sort of as the guild to help make some noise around something that didn't have much recognition. And as we've grown, the audience, both internally, externally, the audience we want to reach, I think our scope and perspective has changed on that. Things have grown so much that it just wanting to have every brewery in the state be a member of the guild and be involved in what we're doing isn't nearly enough. And there have been thoughtful conversations going on about this for a number of years. And one of the things that our board has focused on as we've grown up, and a lot of it really was focused on recently, including last year was a year where we really focused on policies and procedures and trying to document some things and formalize some things. And one of the things that we talked about was the issue of diversity, equity, inclusion, and and a code of ethics is something that we worked on last year and actually adopted, as well as forming a DE&I committee. So we're still, I guess, at a fairly early stage, but I think that the conversation, the scope of the conversation, and the importance of the issue awareness has grown. And I really
believe that what's great about the beer community is the community. What's great about our beer festivals is the people and the atmosphere there. And I think it's a really important thing to be conscious of and thoughtful of, because it's the people that make everything that we're doing great. I mean, and I don't want to minimize the beer. I love beer, and quality beer and great beer is a huge part of it, but the people are a huge part too.
Thank you. Kim, as somebody who came from another state who has some time and leadership under your belt, have you felt there's been change in the time that you've been able to see here in Michigan, or the time that you've seen in your career? Do you feel that there is adaptation being applied to grow up as an industry and add more consciousness, I guess, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, I see change. I saw great change in Colorado just in the 5 years that I was there. So like at one point in time, all the women that brewed in Colorado used to get together and make a beer. And we were only a group of like 5 to 8 total. And then at one point in time, 3 of those women, one was me, were head brewers in the state of a state where there were 200, 300, 400, easily tipping close to 500 probably right now, breweries in the state. In 5 years, we had gone from small brews once a year, collabs, like pulling people from every corner of the state, to our collaboration days were so big, we had to host them at 3 breweries, 5 breweries. Like there were so many women in the industry. And I feel like the women that were in the industry, our job was to get more women in the industry. Like we knew that like go out there, like find more women and get them in. And like the men, their job was just stand by and be like, all right, great, like you're hired, because they were the ones that were in charge. So it was a really nice, when I was there, casual way of being like, hey, you're pretty awesome. Like, have you ever thought of brewing or cellaring or packaging or accounting or marketing or whatever, the 5 billion operations jobs, things that happen in breweries? Like you don't have to make the beer to be diverse in beer. So in 5 years, I saw great diversity growth in Colorado, came here, and like Hannah from Waypost is 15 minutes away. And I was like, holy cow, like there's another woman who's an owner who brews. Like that's pretty amazing and pretty rare.
That's great.
And then the vastness of Michigan hit me, and I'm like, oof, like where are the other women? Like I never saw them when I went to other breweries. I'm finding that they are there. I still don't know them. And so we've been with the Guild. We were when we were brewery and planning, we were with the Michigan Guild. We were members. So we were going to festivals and traveling around and meeting people. And then I got on the board 2020. Yeah. So the beginning of 2020. So I'm starting to see, it feels like people coming out of the woodworks, but I think you're all there all along. I just don't know. So as I meet more people and get out of my own brewery and talk to more folks and meet folks like Jazz from across the state, like meet her, and then I meet people that know her, and then, the web is building. So I think that we are more diverse than I think we are, because I haven't run into those folks yet until we formed the DEI committee. It was awesome, like perfect timing personally, and I think great timing within the industry. It's getting pretty deep. Like we're getting into the high teens of members on that committee, and we're doing great work. And I don't know, for me, I'm very happy coming from a place that felt diverse, coming into a place that I didn't know if it was diverse, and then finding out that it has a lot more to offer than I know. And I can't wait to see like who's out there, who we meet next, who we pull into the industry next. I'm like, hopefully they'll see this and be like, oh, cool. Like I see people like me on the Guild and on these podcasts and on the board, and I want to be involved too, even if it doesn't have to be brewing. So
Yeah.
yes is my answer.
That's great. Thank you for that perspective. And Jasmine, I want to ask you a question for a second, because I think it's interesting from the time, your timeline of when you came into the industry and when you came into the state really offers you a fresh perspective that some of us old timers, we can only try to create an imagined view of, because our view is what it is over the years. So, and with you having some responsibilities in this area in your role, I wonder sort of what your overall sort of assessment or thought of the landscape is, and then how do you feel your perspective with a wider time frame in terms of figuring out where you want to go as a company, where we want to go as an industry, and then helping inform yourself about maybe where we've been prior to you coming in, if that makes any sense. How do you kind of look at it and look forward?
Makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
I was following. I got you. So just for a little background about me, I'm an educator by trade, secondary education, some higher ed, and my background and training is in social justice oriented education. That's like what my entire career in education is. And so like seeing this in the beer industry, like an industry that I've always been excited about. I love beer, love going to breweries when I travel. And now hearing some of the terms and things that like as a professional, I've always known and been a part of and never seen in beer. I'm like, oh, wow. This industry is even cooler than I thought it was. I do think a lot of things that happened last year were reactionary because like they're not new. Like maybe they're new in the past 10 years, but like there's been women and Black people, like people have been here. And has the industry done a good job at like pulling people in and ensuring that they feel safe and confident in order to do their work and just like be and exist in a brewery? No, we haven't, and that's fine. But we're getting to the point. So I think that having these committees and like making some effort and having the buy-in from folks like Scott and Isaac is a big step. And now we can be proactive. But yeah, these committees and stuff is reactionary. But if we can work through it, we can be proactive to make sure that someone new coming into the industry doesn't feel how I felt back in 2018. And back in 2018, yeah, I was the only Black person that worked at our brewery. And that's in Detroit. That's a problem. Yeah. So I think it looks a little different here in like Southeast Michigan than it does in other areas of Michigan, and ensuring that there's representation and there's breweries that support inclusion and that the Guild really supports people and providing them the tools and resources to do that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And, you hit on something that I just jotted down during the last few minutes, which was, you talked about kind of where we're coming from and whether people were safe or not. And I feel like what I wrote down was opportunity versus safety, because, in your first rings of like, oh, we have an imbalance. And we were just trying in the early days. And by the way, I'm not looking to be, make explanations for things, but for some context, it's like there was just trying to get the companies and the breweries to survive, to see that microbreweries could exist. And so I remember, I think there was a minute before we looked at the imbalance consciously and had a moment to say, oh, as an industry, maybe we need to look at these opportunities. But those first approaches don't have the awareness to think about whether somebody feels emotionally and physically safe. Because my thought was just thinking about mid-90s and remembering the first women brewers to come into an organization, and we just didn't know what we were doing. It was progress with all sorts of chaos and discomfort and stubbed toes and doing some right things, but sometimes doing them wrongly. And just, I remember the adaptation was really brutal. Well, anyways, I don't want to go down that whole story. Not being prepared, not having, having a one locker room instead of two, and just structural things that it was like we had no idea what we were doing.
And that's not just beer, that's every industry that's ever started. And so it's not like a beer industry thing. You can see it in like science, engineering, all these other like fields that they have the same problem. But I think we're in a unique space where the industry's still really young and we can make this who we are.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So, Isaac, how about you? You've been in this community at a company for a long time. When you think about change and how things look now, to you or from the outside into the industry, what does that make you think of, and what do you think is significant?
Well, I tend to I've seen the growth of the beer from a volume and category perspective as well. Like when I first started selling, that it was this weird craft beer thing that not a lot of people really knew anything about. So I can identify a lot with what you were saying, Fred, and I remember those days. But now that we have 10, 11, 12 share, it's more broadened to the whole populace. And in order to keep growing, I agree with what you said, Jasmine. It's like we're still young and we can still grow. But as the world has shifted and has more people have come into our tent, if you will, we've had to deal with these certain kinds of cultural shifts and dealing with having various types of people now in our community, and how do we grow that? And I think the first step for, I'm really proud of the Guild and their work last year, is just being aware that that's something that we needed to get better at, and kind of be vulnerable and open and saying, we don't have all the answers, but we need to be better at this. And I would like to also point out that Fermenta started in 2014, which is the women's craft collective here in Michigan. And I think they have grown and done a great job. And so I think there's things that we can do as a guild to help continue to support their movement and be intertwined with them. But at the end of the day, taking a look at your own, reflecting internally and saying, okay, well, what does diversity mean, and what does inclusion mean? And not to be afraid of that, but to press in and say, okay, how can we improve? What are we doing now, and where do we want to go? Is all part of that growth, not only for the individual, but also as a collective organization, because next year is the 25th anniversary. And so, we've grown out of this kind of phase of, we didn't really know what we're doing. Well, now people know what they're doing. So how can we continue to get more people passionate about Michigan beer, and more people into the tent, and also be aware of what our messaging is, and be supportive of and inclusive to everyone to achieve that. So that's kind of how I think about it. And it's, the hindsight, the silver lining in COVID, I think, was that it really forced us in our organization to look at the world that we're living in, and how do we continue to navigate through it all.
Yeah. And so the next question is an interesting one, because I think as we talk about this, we can talk about these positive, forward-looking views of who we want to be and how we want to be to people, and how we want it to feel to become part of this community. And that's culture shaping and building. And then there are also moments in time where people from marginalized experiences, for whatever reason, maybe speaking about what has happened, and more incident based, I was wrong and this is what's happened and I need my voice to be heard. And I think we're trying to, I think broadly, those are both important things. But what I want to get to is organizational role, that as an association of member breweries, there's sort of a place. What I want to ask is, what do you see the role of the guild in shaping this intentional culture and sort of navigating the way to be managing your voice, managing our collective influence on that culture, and then also having an appropriate lane for what we're responsible for, because we aren't those individual breweries as a guild, and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if anybody feels strongly about that to start out the answer, but what's the role of the Michigan Brewers Guild, and how does it operate in a way to help shape a whole industry of culture?
I mean, I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Just to add to that.
Jump right in.
I've been challenged here in our organization about the guild, and I talk to people all the time about whether they want to be a part of the guild or if they should leave the guild, because they're trying to figure out what is the value add. And so, like, I would like to know, like, you know, what is the role of the guild as a whole? It's not just the DE&I stuff, but like, what is the role of the guild? And if it is to represent and promote the best of Michigan craft beer, then who needs to be a part of the guild then? And who maybe isn't representing the best of Michigan craft beer sometimes? And how do we support people in doing that? I don't know, but I have those similar questions. But I think it's a bigger question as far as like, what's the role of the organization as a whole?
Yeah. So I think that heads it to you, Scott, as you are the one shepherding that mission of, and maybe that's a good way to ask it is, you know, what's the overall mission of the guild? And then how does that relate to also maintaining a charter of trying to build intentional culture and inclusiveness?
Sure. And you know, boiled down into its simplest terms, you know, the guild's mission is to promote and protect Michigan breweries and the Michigan beer industry. And we do a number of things promotionally. Our beer festivals are the biggest, you know, easiest to identify. We do a print publication. We've got our website, and there are countless other touch points that we use to, you know, hopefully successfully promote the industry. And when we talk about protect, that's traditionally been defined as legislative affairs. You know, are there threats that could come down? We're in a heavily regulated industry. And, you know, when we start talking about people and safety and roles and things like that, you know, that's probably part of it too, but I don't think that that's, you know, been part of what shaped that promote and protect. So I think that that's a great thing to think about. But at our essence, we're a trade association. We're a nonprofit trade association. We're about bringing everybody together because we're stronger together. And the more people you have, the more the industry grows, the more diverse the businesses get just by the very nature of their size, their approach, and what they're doing. And so there are challenges to keep everybody on the same page, but it's always been our goal for everybody to be a member. We want everybody to be a member. That's what makes our association strong, is to have strong membership. And we've been very intentional over the years about trying to infuse our board of directors thoughtfully with new members. For a lot of years, the only people that seemed to have time and energy to serve kept serving, and we have intentionally tried to generate turnover, thoughtful turnover within our board of directors, so it wasn't stagnant in something that wasn't evolving with the rest of the industry. And the industry certainly changed. It went from where, you know, there were 60 or 70 or 40 breweries and everybody knew what everybody else was doing, to an industry where breweries are opening and they're open and operating, and the people in your circle may not know anything about them. So the landscape has changed a lot. One of the things we've been careful to do, although we've talked about it, careful to do or not do, we've talked about it for many years, is the importance and the role of quality to the overall success, long-term success of the industry. And we've been thoughtful about our mark, you know, our Michigan, the Great Beer State kind of mark for the guild, being a mark of membership. It doesn't signify quality. I mean, we really want to influence quality and assure quality because we think it's important, but we certainly don't think it's our role at this time to say, your beer's tremendous, yours is pretty good, and yours not so much. I mean, if we see that, we'd like to try and connect people, get them to come to our conference, share resources so that their beer can be good too, because that helps the whole industry, and bad beer harms the industry. But we really look at every brewery as somebody that we want to be a member. We recognize that they're going to be, whether it's beer, action, other things that can be challenges, but it's our goal to be inclusive of all the breweries and have an association and breweries associating and making the industry stronger as a whole.
I think that's a really interesting point, and what it brings me to too is that I think there are similarities here in terms of the beer and brewing and sort of the the leadership and the acting and bad acting, versus great beer and not so great beer. Meaning, I think we've always been especially we've had a conference for a very long time, and it's been robust. And I think we started the conference earlier than most organizations would, and it revealed another part that may not be spoken to, and that promote and protect. But we've really been a collaborative educational group that learns from one another for throughout our history. And I think that we've always tried to help teach one another to raise the bar, raising the bar through awareness and education and encouragement and mentoring. And I think that this is just bringing, I would hope that that's the same way we go within these other issues, is the same idea, is that conference and that camaraderie and the opportunity to have relationships and trusted colleagues who you can ask hard questions to, and you can reveal problems that you're having free of judgment and saying, boy, I got a situation here, I don't know what to do. Having a community that can talk you through that, there's a lot of similarities to how you might get through a disastrous problem in your brew house and a really challenging problem in your employee base and human resource department. And I would hope we'd have a lot of that supportive connective tissue there as well. I don't mean to answer my own question, but I do think that that's it does help answer that question of why the guild, Jasmine. Is I think that we've always thought community makes us stronger, and being in is the first step. And so we got to make sure that doors open as an organization. And I'll use we a lot, even though I'm not on the board or staff in that regard, but it's the way I feel. So I think there's an obligation to keep the door open, and then it gets stronger the more people walk through it.
And when they walk through it, like you said, making sure we support them.
Yep.
That I think it's awesome to hear that the guild's always done that, and has been supporting folks, and especially supporting just business practices. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about is being a good business owner. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I don't know how often folks are able to get together outside of the conference. And maybe Kim can speak a little bit more to this, but we've been having happy hours and stuff. We have another one coming up where we're inviting everybody, whether you're a member, whether you're not a member, so we can figure out what is it. Because if you aren't a member, what is it, and how, why aren't you getting what you thought you were going to get from the guild? And I think that is support. People want the support and they want the camaraderie, but they often feel really disconnected and just hanging out on their little side of Michigan.
Absolutely.
I guess I wanted to say, and I know that I bring this to the guild board, and I think it's a strength, but I also think it's a challenge sometimes for everybody else. I'm always pushing what the board's role is in that way. And I see us now talking more about not just great beer and great practices, but the community and the people. So the promote and the protect of the people, of the makers, of the employees, and then Scott's talking about quality. It's not just quality beer. It is way more than that. And I know he didn't want to, go into all of it, but it is quality practices. Down to quality hiring. We're not just talking about quality people, good people, bad people. I'm like, you're a member. Let us help you improve your quality of who you're hiring, how you're training, what you're training. all the way through to how we can make this a better, more inclusive community. Because say that, our idea of this tent, say that we get everybody in the tent, great. Are people going to want to stay? So if we keep working on the human side of this too, and that's where a board of directors has a line, like we can say, we think this is a professional thing to do or a way to act, but we can't say necessarily like you have to do it. So being a trade association is setting that bar and setting it achievable and equal for everybody to step up to that bar and get it and like have those practices. But it's not really our job to be like, oh, you're doing it and you're not doing it. Like Scott was saying, your beer is good, your beer is bad. If people are having poor procedures, Jazz, I think that's where it comes in, like those personal conversations, those one-on-ones that are just a little bit less of a big group than a happy hour or meetups that we used to do before festivals. We do kind of regional meetups and people could come and the board would be there and you can ask questions and we can talk about what we're working on. And that was really cool. But that one-on-one time afterwards or before is really what this guild's all about too. So there are many ways to reach people. But if people are like me, it's so much easier when you know a few people in the room. And so if people just keep coming and keep showing up and just keep trying, you will find that person that you connect with and hopefully you get what you want. But yeah, those DEI happy hours, I really hope that we reach out to more folks that have questions that we don't even know about. As much as I'd love to be a mind reader, I have no idea besides, what things have been talked about of what's going on and what people need. So just keep letting us know. I'm like, we're listening.
Yeah. And I hear you saying that beyond getting together around DEI issues, it's also just getting together.
Yep.
That will be the thing that takes you through the issues, whichever they are and whichever category they came from. Isaac, you want to help just share a little bit about what I wanted to do briefly before moving on to the next question is just since it can be difficult for a consumer to know where their beer came from, what type of brewery, who's it from, is it a subsidiary or not, and different organizations have different definitions and there are different terms out there in the world. What is the criteria for being in the Michigan Brewers Guild? And so if somebody's at a Michigan Brewers Guild festival and they're meeting a new brewery, what did it take for that brewer to become part of our organization and community?
Well, the bylaws simply state that you must be a member in good standing and have taxable removals, which means you have to have a physical brewery and make beer and pay taxes, and then join in
Michigan.
In Michigan, correct. So it doesn't define it as who owns it or what entity is part of it. It's just if you make beer in Michigan and you have taxable removals and you have shown that you can join to or pay the association dues to be a member, those are the really only two defining qualities that a new member must have. And from there, I think the founders purposely kept it that way, knowing that we wanted to keep it open to anybody who was, putting a brewery in Michigan. So it could be if a larger brewer wanted to come in Michigan, for example, and become a member, they could.
So big, small, old or new, if you are the brewery that is making the beer and that beer is being made in Michigan, you have the opportunity to become a guild member.
Correct.
Thank you for that. So being conscious of time and our hopes for covering some ground here, I want to move on to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of the Michigan Brewers Guild. We have a co-chairs here. Would either one of you like to start out by kind of sharing what is the charter, the purpose, the mission, what are the goals of the DEI committee? Maybe how did it come to be, and what are you hoping to how are you hoping to impact the world with it. Kim, looks like you're up.
Okay, so without like firm mission statements and things in front of me, Jazz, correct me if I get it wrong. But we're just here to support good practices and the people that want to drink craft beer, and even the people that don't know if they want to drink craft beer. We want to be open to everyone. So in that sense, building on a more diverse population in people's, whether it's like to-go beer out of a bar, or whether it's where you're putting your beer on shelves, or who comes to your brewery. So diversity in all sense. And then inclusion, literally making people welcome, truly welcome, no matter who you are.
And you're talking
And
about
equity
drinkers,
is okay.
drinkers
Pardon?
and employee. You're talking about
We're talking
drinkers,
about
consumers,
any-
and employees alike.
Yes, yes, even people that don't drink beer. So like in the sense of the community is totally open. Like you can be sober and you just love these folks. I mean, look at this group. How could you
Yeah.
not? All the way through to the people who are selling our beer on shelves and in coolers and at bars and at breweries, through to the people that are making banners and beer and finances and the entire thing. So just really throwing our arms as wide open as we can, and just being here to listen to what people need and or want beer and or Michigan craft beer to be. So, I mean, it could be a little issue in their specific brewery or something industry wide. We're pretty new with all of this. It could be an offensive label. I don't know. Like, we haven't been around as a committee that long, but we're trying to make strides in training and just kind of normalizing talking about DEI related topics and issues. Like, it is super normal everywhere else. Might as well talk about it at our conferences and maybe provide some training so we can like up the quality in our daily procedures in our breweries and other places of work. We're trying to figure out who is in Michigan a part of the industry, like who's earning a check, I guess, from beer in that way. So not necessarily making beer and owning the breweries, but who's working in the breweries? Like, what is our diversity as a state? We don't really know. It's not something that we've asked a whole lot about. The BA has a nice survey that they do every year that a lot of people have filled out. We have a nice survey as well, but we're looking to kind of bring those things together. So new questions, BA survey, our survey, who's really making Michigan beer in the sense of making, who's promoting it, who is, who's behind the scenes, what type of people make up our membership and the employees. And then what else are we working on? Oh, we have so many cool ideas. We're just trying to like narrow down 3 or 4 for the year, and trying to be super open for anybody that wants to kind of help us move our train forward. We're going for
Great.
it.
Thank you for that. So Jasmine, maybe you can take a part 2 of that question and a little bit about, it's sort of maybe a 2-part question that you can choose apart or blend them together. But my thought is about the strategy. So the idea of, okay, that's what we're here to do. You've identified kind of the audience is everybody, and it's not a specific issue. It's inclusion and open arms. I like the way you said that. But so from a strategy point of view, my question is, what are some of the things you think you can do? Because those are big topics and big audacious goals. And then the other side of that might be, where is there available? How are you resourcing your efforts in terms of, are there organizations, are there people, are there places that you're going to help mentor the committee and thus the guild on the efforts forward, because it's complex?
Yeah, I mean, that's why the BA has multiple committees around DE&I. And we do that. Speaking of resources, look to the Brewers Association. Most of the folks that are in the guild are a part of the Brewers Association, and they have lots of information and lots of people that are paid to do research about this. So we're not reinventing the wheel. Something we keep coming back to is that there's other guilds across the country that are doing great work. There's businesses within Michigan that are doing great work. So we're trying to replicate. There's successful models on what DE&I looks like for people's breweries. It's just getting that information to everyone. So right now, Kim was talking about the surveys and stuff like that, and having these happy hours and things like that. We're trying to get information. So like right now, step one is like, get the information. What are people seeing? What do people not like? What are frustrations that have been happening? So we can really understand how to support people, because support does not look the same everywhere. And we can't promote diversity if we're not here to support diversity. We can have all the diversity in the world, but we don't have the support systems and structures in order to support this diverse population and our breweries. It means nothing. So like I said, just getting the information and then figuring out what supports do we need to put in place, and looking to the BA and looking to breweries across the state that are doing great work and sharing those stories.
That makes a lot of sense. And would you say that support, which I like, is support a big part of the equity part, that, you know, diversity, inclusion, if it doesn't feel equitable in terms of feel like you have a place and that you have, it feels like support is one of the ways that it connects to that equity part. The equity. If I got let in, but I wasn't given a chance to thrive, then maybe I wasn't really let in.
Yeah. I mean, I like I said, I'm on this mentorship and professional development committee with the BA that just started this year. And it started because we wanted to help people get a chance. Because a lot of folks are getting in and leaving. Why are folks leaving the industry sometimes? Why did you hop to another brewery? What really happened? If we can understand like what support folks need, we can make it a better place for everybody. And maybe that incident doesn't happen at this brewery ever again, or maybe it doesn't happen at any brewery in our state.
Yeah. And so, Jasmine, maybe you're good to pick up this next question first. With your experience, is that knowing what we've shared about the guild has sort of some specific boundaries to its role in terms of what it can and encourage. It's more of an encourager and a mentor and a community builder than any sort of enforcement. That said, I just wonder if there's somebody, if there's people in our industry who may be struggling with either discrimination or poor treatment, or they're struggling with any of these issues. What sort of advice can we offer them as industry members and as people that are part of this guild community? What's the advice for the people who are feeling like they don't have a good environment right now, or there are specific negative actions towards them happening?
Call me, call Kim, call Scott, call us. Because you say there's no enforcement, but we don't have to get into the code of conduct, but there is some language in there. I'm not saying anybody's going to get kicked out of the guild, but like, we're going to hold people accountable. And part of holding people accountable is saying, hey, what's going on in your brewery, man? Like, hey, I know you, Dane. Jasmine just told me something, What's going on over there? Do you need support? It sounds like we got this information, We can talk to our members. We can talk to our breweries. So we just need to know the information and we can advocate. Because I do think the guild's role is advocating for everyone that's a part of the industry. We can do that. So call us. And if you don't want to call us, the BA also has a reporting tool too, but call. It'll get to us eventually. Not eventually, like it'll get to us quickly.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add to that in terms of ways to help?
I was going to say, know your rights. Like, know your rights and speak up. Speak up somehow. It's not, please come to us. Yes, like Jazz said. But if for some reason that feels too big for you, like tell a friend, like tell a coworker, like just don't keep it to yourself, whatever it is. And hopefully it will get out of where you are. But we are here, even though you don't necessarily know us. Some of you do, some don't. But tell somebody what's going on is the best way to go, and know your rights. I'm like, we're going to put those sorts of resources as a part of our DE&I page as well.
Awesome.
I agree with Kim on that. Just to piggyback, these are rights. This is business practice. When we're talking about DE and I, a lot of this is HR, and there's lawsuits. Clearly, there's lawsuits that have happened. But yeah, know your rights. I love that, Kim. Thank you.
Yeah. Isaac, thoughts?
Well, I'm just really encouraged by all this great dialogue that we're having to get together today. And I echo with what Kim and Jasmine are saying is that, yeah, we need to tell somebody that if something's going on. But I think also, too, for everyone listening, that the Guild, and the DEI committee is working on those list of resources, getting them up on the website and getting the training that breweries need, and specifically HR departments, because I couldn't imagine trying to start. I've been in the industry 20 years, trying to start my own brewery and all the regulations and all the things that you need to do. That's where we can really serve, I think, our members more, is providing those resources and saying, hey, look, this is important. Here's some things that we can help you with, and bridging those gaps that maybe sometimes people need to feel like that they can have access to those. And we have throughout, I think the past 4 or 5 years, have really tried to be more resourceful as an organization. I mean, a few years ago, we went through this project I can remember working on with Scott, where we listed, here's how you file your taxes, and here's some rules and regulation things, and here's links to navigate through the liquor control code on the resource page. But there's no reason why we can't have a DE&I section of human resource stuff too there, as a resource for members too. So it's getting better and communicating, collaborating more as a group.
Yeah. Scott, anything to add there in terms of somebody on either side, employer, employee, that's feeling in trouble, they don't know where to go, how or what would you recommend?
Yeah, again, I think the comment to share in general, to get people to be part of the community, to get to know the more people get to know each other, the easier it is to help somebody, to share information, to tell somebody that you need help. And we traditionally have been very sharing and very open when you look at just the lane of making beer. Most industries look at it and go, I've never seen an industry where somebody would just help anybody. Normally they'd leave them out to hang out to dry. And so I think the more that people do know each other and talk and spend time together, and the more we can foster that sense of community, I think it will help people to share other resources and to share problems as well, because that can be a hard thing to say, hey, I'm having a problem here. Nobody wants to be in that situation.
Yeah, I think you're right. Our collaborative sense of helping each other be better and grow from a skill and artistry point of view is so advanced on the beer making side. I remember even saying it was more advanced on making than it is on selling. Selling gets a little more reserved, and as makers, we're so generous and sharing tips to be better. And I think that's a great point of aspiration to look at. Can we be that way about being team members and about being community builders? If we had the same level of expertise in there, which I do believe we're working on, but I think that would be a great place to be. And it's something we're already doing. Yeah, go ahead.
Scott really pushed the mission of the Guild, that promoting and protecting of Michigan beer. And so I personally get pissed off, and I'm going to take it personally offensive if something happens at another brewery, because that's poorly representing Michigan craft beer. So when I say call us, let us know if someone's doing something, if something's happening somewhere, that is not representative of who we are as an industry here in Michigan. And so we have to put our foot down and let folks know that no, Michigan craft beer is inclusive, it is diverse, and we want to have everybody a part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. And I like what everybody said, and I just want to echo the part about or maybe just paraphrase and summarize as we move forward, is that support is out there. You may not see where it is, and it may not be abundantly clear. And I think that there's a lot of people working on making that more visible. But I really liked what you said, Kim, is tell somebody there is support there. And one of the things that we do really well is find that even if there wasn't, I think that if you called somebody who, our community is going to care, and if they can't do something, they're going to know maybe somewhere to send you that could help. So like, even if we can't do it, I think there's a lot of caring people who are going to help in one way or another, whether that's bringing more resources or standing up right there. So I just appreciate that. And I think that's an important thing to remember, that we're trying to build this great community, and then also understanding there's somebody who doesn't feel that way because of their experience. And I think the last question I want to get to is about looking forward. So thinking about what you want to see ahead for the community, whether it's regards to these issues or just overall. But I think I just want to wrap up with my own, this last part with my own sort of sentiment as an old timer, is that when you look backwards and you realize there were years and there was portions where somebody else was having a different experience, and knowing that, like you're talking about, Jasmine, the pride of our industry, it is painful to hear some of the things that happened that I feel like happened on our watch, so to speak. And there's a sense of shared responsibility for our community. And I think it can be what makes it very difficult to unpack some of these things, because you want to protect yourself from that pain or that realization. And I think both looking back and looking forward, it's like one of the thoughts I've had on the subject is just accepting that I could have done better. I could have done more. And what does that mean? It means looking forward, I can do better and I can do more. So that's just my personal part about how I think we can take some of the difficult things to hear and turn them into something, which is, okay, so now what? So that's how I wanted to hand it off, to kind of closing question to each one of you, which is, with all this said, with all this really important conversation, what are you looking forward to in Michigan, in the world, related to this and everything else? Kim, you want to take it away?
Sure. There's so many things that I'm looking forward to, but one is just being back at beer festivals with you all.
Yeah.
Just as they were, like, just being able to walk around and say hi to new friends and old friends, and it's going to be awesome. So I'm really looking forward to the one in Comstock Park. From there, I just saw that a bunch of friends out in Colorado just did the big queer beer fest. I'm like, I would love, oh man, there were so many breweries. Like, I would love to see more minority group focused events throughout the year, because yeah, I do feel like a bit of an island over on the west side a lot, and that's cool sometimes, but sometimes it's just like, man, I want more people that are like me. Like, I know they're here, they're just hard to find. And I think with that survey and with the DEI committee, we'll know a little bit more about each other and the makeup. I just think that, like, I mean, there's been like Fresh Fest, and there's Soul Fest, and like there's women's festivals, Femme Male Fest. I'm like, I just think there's a lot more that we can do with events and things around this topic that are fun, not just, good trainings and solid workshops and quality information. Like, let's have some fun together and maybe theme some events for one group or another. The people in that group, we aren't afraid to stand up and pour our beer and to share. So it'll be a good time.
Yes. Excellent. And I thought I was done, but I liked something you said there, which is that, when you're talking about the fest, you also related to seeing people, that are like you. And I think that's a big thing about people in the world, is they want to belong to organizations that they can imagine themselves in, that they see themselves in. So I think those specialized fests, they're not about being exclusive. They're about showing representation, which is inviting to somebody who says, I can see myself there.
Yeah,
So
tons
I think
and
that's a
tons of-
great connection you made.
Tons and tons of white people went out to support Fresh Fest. Just because you're not black doesn't mean you couldn't be there. I'm like, go there, but like meet boss black brewers. Like, how cool is that? Like, I just love it. And I want our state to do it. Like, we do festivals like none I've ever seen. So
Mhm.
why not do what we do well, but make that little tweak, just a different group, just a different focus. And maybe it's an area of the festival, whatever. I got ideas, guys.
Excellent. Isaac, how about you? What are you looking forward to? Oh, I think you're muted.
I, like everybody else, am really looking forward to getting back to beer festivals and seeing people and face to face and just sharing that collaborative spirit and community. But I think I'm looking forward a lot to the challenge of this subject just in general and how we can come up with some other great ideas and resources we can provide our staff, but also just getting better. I've always been a person that has tried to get better at what we do and day by day, not only at New Holland, but just serving on the board at the guild level too. So I know it's kind of vague, but not specific, but we need to change, we need to grow and push ourselves to be better and contribute more positively in the world. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. Jasmine, how about you?
Kim, thanks for the energy. I was like, oh yeah.
Let's do it.
There's a lot to look forward to. I am optimistic and I have lots of reasons not to be optimistic, but I am optimistic. I still remain in that sentiment. And I'm excited for more folks to know how inclusive our industry is, because like beer is that unique thing, unlike other industries, where the nature of beer is community. And so now we're letting people know, hey, beer is communal and beer is for everyone. So I'm excited to see more queer folks in our tap room, more people of color, more women. I'm excited to see that at festivals because representation does matter, and making sure that people know that there's a place for you here. You might not have ever thought to work in the beer industry. My parents still think that I make beer. And I'm like, there's lots of different jobs at a brewery. I never thought I would work at a brewery. So like the fact that that's a reality for me, seeing what kind of reality that could be for other folks when they become my age or when they get into a place where like, hey, what am I going to do for a living? Now people are like, hey, I could work at a brewery. That's crazy. So I'm really excited to see that. And I'm really excited to see more breweries start to question and find resources and start to implement practices that make it a safe and inclusive space for everyone. And like hearing breweries start to like ask those hard questions, that's a first step. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
Thank you very much. Love the energy and perspective. So Scott, that leaves it to you. What are you looking forward to, and what excites you about the days ahead, which can include 2 beer festivals in August, as well as other worldly topics?
Well, of course, I'm looking forward to seeing people at beer festivals again. But I'm going to bring it kind of back full circle to where I started, and that I think the greatest thing about our industry and what's appealing to people who discover it is the people in the community. And I really enjoy learning new things and trying to continuously improve, and I like solving problems. So I look forward to applying those skills to everything else that I'm doing to hopefully support the industry and see that people or realize people having a good time and discovering that beer is a great place to be, no matter who you are, and even if you don't drink beer.
Yeah. And if you didn't know beer was a destination, we're here to tell you it's not only that, it's a great place to be. So I just want to thank you all for sharing your trust, your knowledge, your insights here, and so that we can have just this one brief conversation that can address things and challenges in our industry. And yet you guys are all an inspiration because you're able to look forward and you're able to help us grow. So thank you for participating in this conversation, and for everybody that supports the organization and our industry and our culture. And that's it for this episode of Michigan's Great Beer State podcast. We'll see you soon, and look forward to seeing you at beer festivals and everywhere else. And again, in closing, if you feel like you could use help, you could use advice, you could use support, you could use an ear, call us. Thank you and cheers.
Thanks, everybody, and cheers.
Take care. Good to see your faces.
Thanks for listening and sharing while supporting Michigan breweries and craft beer everywhere. The Michigan Brewers Guild was formed in 1997 with its first summer beer festival taking place in July of 1998. Its now 5 annual festivals are dedicated exclusively to Michigan beer brewed by more than 270 member breweries. The Michigan Brewers Guild exists to promote and protect the passionate Michigan beer industry in every way possible. To learn more, visit us at mibeer.com or say hello on one of our social media pages, as we love hearing from you. From coast to coast, from far and near, let's drink Michigan beer.